I'm going to be in Austin, Texas on Thursday with the Tea Party group unveiling their version of a contract from America. I've been meeting with Tea Party groups in 10 or 12 cities now.
In terms of the Tea Party movement, doing sort of an informal poll of people we've spoken to, are they disgruntled Republicans who are disappointed with the party and so they're sort of moving off to a different direction or a different organization, or are they independents suddenly getting active, or are they even Democrats?
I actually think first of all, they remind me a lot of the Perot voters. They tend to be fairly well educated. They tend to very often be self-employed. A number of the mothers were homeschoolers. They're very sincere people. Every place I've been, they talk about studying the Constitution, having reading clubs, holding classes. I would say they're probably 60% Republican, Republican and independent, 40% Democrat. That the Democrats tend to be what we would once have called Reagan Democrats. They tend to be more conservative, very alienated, very sensitive on economic issues. And I have not heard in my lifetime as much talk about the Constitution as I have in meetings with Tea Party leaders around the country. We had 55 people in Louisiana from the Louisiana Tea Parties who met with me on Thursday. And the number of people who talked about what are our constitutional rights, what is the limit on government, what did the founding fathers say? I mean, in one way, what the left is doing is forcing the country into an education on a scale that I wouldn't have thought likely.
But isn't that, if you say that so many of them are like Perot, isn't that fatal to the Republican Party? Because look what happened with Perot and former Vice President, or former President, I should say, George H.W. Bush. Look what happened with him with the Perot vote.
Look, I think if Republican leaders do not listen carefully and do not try to absorb and be involved with the Tea Parties, then there's a big problem. But if you looked at the, Michelle Bachmann and Governor Palin had 11,000 people last week in Minneapolis. They had an enormous, they were $700,000 in one evening. Governor Pawlenty was there. I mean, the whole congressional delegation on the Republican side. They clearly understood that they needed to bring Tea Partiers and Republicans under the same movement. And I think if you're willing to work at it, you can do that, because I think that there's a genuine feeling on the part of most of the Tea Party people. They're sophisticated enough to know that splitting the vote guarantees that Pelosi stays as Speaker and Obama stays as President and Reid stays as Majority Leader. And they're willing to look over minor differences in order to make sure that they beat those three.
Why aren't Republicans, the ones who are not in the Tea Party, why aren't those Republicans going over to the Tea Party?
Well, I think part of it's a matter of style. Part of it's a matter of what people are already actively involved in. If you're a Republican precinct leader, you probably don't become a Tea Partier. But there are a lot of Republicans who do go to the Tea Party events. And I think part of that's because under our constitutional structure, where you have elections on a certain cycle, people got so agitated starting with the stimulus package. I mean, the stimulus package was the beginning of this whole mess, because the fact that Obama could drive through $787 billion in spending with no elected official having read it, which is why I describe it as a machine. I mean, if you can get $787 billion out of the Congress and nobody's read the bill, that's a machine. That's not representative self-government. I think that really, for an amazing number of people, was a jarring event. And then since then, it's just gotten steadily worse. And interestingly, I find more people now paying attention to process. How are these bills written? Why are they in secret? Why do they introduce 300 pages as an amendment at 4 in the morning and vote on it at 3 the next afternoon? I mean, there's a lot more awareness out there about how Pelosi and Reid and Obama are trying to manipulate the system than I would have thought likely a year ago.